civilians and civilian infrastructure are being targeted, and that has nothing to do with what they said was the aim of kind of eradicating Hamas. The over 11,000 people killed, how many of them are Hamas members? Obviously, we don't know the exact number, but what we do know is that the overwhelming majority are civilians, and half of
Yes.
them are
Women and
children.
children. Women and children. More than three-fourths are women and children, and they're obviously not Hamas militants.
Exactly, exactly. And so this is the reality. These are the facts. No one is disputing these that we have in front of us. Even Secretary of State Blinken had to concede finally. Well, too many Palestinian children have been killed, which begs the question: is
One wonders how
how
many is too many. Yeah,
right? How many is
too
okay
many. Yeah.
to kill? So, but so these are facts that even the most ardent supporters of Israel cannot deny, and are not really denying. In terms of this nonstop Zionist talking point of these hospitals and other civilian infrastructure being used as a form of a human shield for the Hamas militants. In the case of the grotesque takeover of the Al Shifa hospital, we have the Israelis claim that there's the major command and control center of Hamas there, or underneath there. And after days, and I mean, even beginning before that, but really in a major offensive way on November 15th, what they could produce. I mean, it's almost cartoonish. These a couple of weapons behind, a couple of guns behind the MRI machine, and initially there was like one or two, then it expands to four. And even in this case, the embedded journalists, because the Israelis do not let these foreign media journalists roam about without their permission. And in fact, I mean, that's why they're embedded. They have to be constantly with the Israeli Defense Forces, the Israeli army. And so even these very tepid journalists from CNN or the BBC, to their credit, even went publicly, went on a broadcast saying that some of this doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
And the suspicion, which they said explicitly, that some of this footage has been edited. And of course, the Israelis are outraged at even the suggestion, and they deny it. But even you don't have to be kind of a seasoned, reporter. I mean, even the layperson can see that some of this, as I said, is just bizarre and cartoonish. The way they put out some video,
right.
I think they have to, because again, the incessant emphasis that there's a lot of Hamas presence here, and so they have to put out some videos to even attempt to kind of assuage and the concerns of the vast majority of the world about what it's doing. And so they put out these videos about these weapons here, and now just yesterday they claim to have found the tunnel underneath, finally, and they give the footage of the entrance to the tunnel and so on. I mean, we must remember that the vast majority of these underground tunnels were actually built when Israel was occupying Gaza back in 1982, in the early 1980s. Hamas was founded in 1987. Hamas did not even exist then. And so, many of the Israelis themselves were kind of responsible for. And initially, the Palestinians just used this for food, medicines, other smuggled goods to trade, and so on and so forth. So, there's nothing new. One can say that, perhaps Hamas, particularly since the Second Intifada in the early 2000s, kind of then used these not only for the purposes of food, because we have to remember, since 2006 and 7, when Hamas won, a very brutal siege and embargo blockade was imposed on Gaza, in which all of these things were incredibly difficult to get in. And so these tunnels were like the lifeline to get basic necessities of life, including food and medicine. And of course, for Hamas also kind of, as a defensive tactic, also getting their weapons. But of course, we know that most of the weapons have been homemade weapons. These are not these are not fighter jets.
Sophisticated,
Exactly. There's not fighter jets and these things that Hamas is making. They have no air force, no navy, no sophisticated army or anything like that. And so these, but again, I mean, they have not produced any evidence of any of Hamas and Hamas presence. Forget about that. They're saying that this was literally the command center of Hamas. I mean, you would think that they would find some and they could show them to the videos that and so on. And all we've seen is patients. We've seen virtually everyone in the ICU unit having died or being killed, etc., because of the siege.
Exactly. And what I was gonna add to that was that when questioned about these attacks and giving people a chance to evacuate and something, they keep saying, oh, they were given hours to evacuate, or they were given some notice to evacuate. But how was this evacuation going to happen? What was the logistics? Nobody has elaborated on that. I mean, I'm a critical care physician, and I know for a fact that when you're trying to transfer one sick ICU patient, it takes hours, if not days, of planning to ensure a safe transfer. And how are they supposed to carry entire ICUs, sick babies in incubators, on ventilators, in matter of hours? And we're not even sure if that was even the case, even if they were given even that window. And where were those people supposed to go? Was there an alternative place? Was there an alternative care option for them to go to?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like when they speak about how we allowed them to get away and evacuate from the hospital. I mean, it's as if that this is some type of a concert or in a movie theater in which they're asking people to casually leave, etc. I mean, for God's sake, this is a hospital. These are patients, many of them critically ill. You don't just, as you know much better than I do, kind of evacuate. People
don't just up and go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of the authorities, the Director General of Shifa Hospital said that this will take weeks, if not months, to get these patients and transferred to somewhere safe in which the care can continue and all of that. And the Israelis just say, just leave. We're giving you the permission to leave. It's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous, and it's insane. And I mean, I don't know who takes that seriously. I don't know how you can take that seriously. And and so that was for this brief window in which they say that. And now, of course, they're not letting them leave. Because again, the expectation would be is that these hospitals, and especially Al Shifa Hospital, because it's the biggest one, would be a safe haven from what Israel is doing all around it, the heavy bombardment and so on. But of course, that has not been the case also. I mean, they have engaged in sniper fire and raids on certain levels of the hospital, and of course, like occupying it. I mean, how grotesque it was, where like one of the first things they did was go on the roof of it and put an Israeli flag, literally as if like this is some type of a colonial occupation. Again, so I think that I think that what the Israelis are now doing is just basically the same way they blockaded Gaza. That's what they're doing to the hospital, and trying to find something. I don't know if it's just a crude joke or something, but again, for global public opinion, they will repeatedly try to produce some type of an edited cartoonish video that can say that, look, oh, we found some gun here, some weapon there, and this and that. Again, this is not evidence. This is not evidence of anything. We don't know. It's basically that we have to go along with whatever the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces statements come out. Oh, but that's not evidence. All governments, especially the Israelis, are pathological liars when it comes to these types of things.
There's no independent reports from there, so there's no way to verify whatever the Israeli narrative is.